This episode of the Jesse T Show is brought to you by 46 and 2 Wealth Partners. This year, many people have lots of money questions. Finding the right information can be tough, and more importantly, finding someone that you like and have confidence in is even tougher. If you'd like to keep more of your money, and more importantly, if you'd like to stop trading time for money and live the life you deserve, contact 46 and 2 Wealth Partners today. Right now, Jesse T Show listeners will receive a free 15-minute phone call that will leave you with at least one idea on how to keep or make more money. Text promo code Jesse T Show to phone number 202-301-4503.
David, brother, welcome to the show.
Jesse, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure to have you. And I know you have a lot to talk about and what's going on in your world and what you're focusing on. And just for some context, tell the world a little bit more about you and what you do.
Yeah, so I am 22 going on 23 actually next month. I'm a younger entrepreneur, and I use that word lightly because I'm still very much figuring the entrepreneurship thing out. I started doing this when I was in college, mostly because college is great. You make a lot of friends, but whenever you get down to like what you're actually learning and what you're doing, a lot of it feels like busy work, especially for somebody that wanted to make an impact early on. And, I had that entrepreneurship bug in me as early as I can remember from like trying to, my first entrepreneurship story was, we lived on a golf course. So anytime a golf ball would get hit in our yard, before, anyone had the chance to go get it, I would run outside, grab it, put it in a bucket and run back inside. And it was my golf ball collection. Then every year at the yard sale, I would start selling golf balls. And I think one year I made $150 and thought I was filthy rich. And then the next hustle was, flipping and selling shoes. And we've since moved on to websites. But really what started is, in college, I kind of felt frustrated that I couldn't see the impact I was making. The paper that I was writing didn't really have a real impact on anyone. Yep. And that bothered me. So I quickly realized, I'll do my best to get like the 3.5 or higher GPA, make parents happy, make people happy, keep them from thinking I'm completely ditching, but, spend a majority of my time on, what are the skills, how can I invest in myself early on and, and start that process as quickly as possible to where, looking back 25, 26, 27, I'm eternally grateful for starting early. So the first hustle I really had, outside of the shoes and the golf balls was managing social media accounts for different brands in, I guess, a larger city that was close by to where I went to college. And that has since turned into basically, your full scale web design and development world.
How old were you when you were stealing the golf balls?
Oh, man, I was in elementary school. I was young.
Okay. And what inspired that? Because I have a similar story. I'll touch on my experience in a second. But what inspired that entrepreneurial hustle? Did you see someone in your family? Did you have someone that you admired? Did you just have an innate internal hustle? Like, what was that?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a mix of seeing it in my family, but also having it, just innate. My dad, on paper, probably wouldn't be considered an entrepreneur. Typical 9 to 5 from as long as he could remember. But, the way he tackled problems is very much with an entrepreneur's mindset of like, what's the creative way that we can solve this? It's actually going to make an impact, but, it's still thinking outside the box. Like, how can we rewrite the book on this? And I think, the golf ball example is a really good example because one, there's an opportunity to go do something, but two, there is money involved. So for, your 10-year-old kid, your 12-year-old kid, it was, every golf ball wasn't, a golf ball in their backyard. It was 25 cents. So I think it was fun as well to, early on see the fact that your work can be attached to like a potential outcome. But it was really just the fun of like, you always had to be on guard and there was always an opportunity to more or less, see the opportunities and take them, when they presented themselves. And it was fun. I mean, it moved all the way to shoes was the next hustle. And it was just finding people that had no idea what they were selling, underrated. Their listings were like, hey, here's a pair of Jordans. But like, they didn't tell you that they were like, some retro or like the original like Concord release for the 11s. They're worth a ton of money, but they don't know that. So you always have to kind of hunt for the deal and hunt for the steal more or less. And a lot of that was fun of just playing both sides and being the middleman and just learning all that goes into trying to carve out your little slice of the pie. But yeah, I think some of it was seeing my dad just creatively work through problems, but once you get that entrepreneur bug, you start to see problems a lot differently. And shoes don't just become stuff that you wear in their feet. They, they become assets you can trade back and forth.
Are you a sneakerhead yourself, or did you just see an opportunity to make some money in a nice little venue, like a nice way to do it?
I played high school basketball and I played high school soccer. And in that, obviously, basketball and soccer are probably two of the most flashy sports, I'd say, especially in apparel. And I think watching that for so long, you'd see guys roll up in like these $1,000 Jordans. You'd see even soccer players are like, some of these cleats were like, kangaroo leather. They were super special and unique. I think that got me into like, these are really cool. And then I was like, wait a second, like this cool thing called Facebook Marketplace on my phone, I can do some damage here. Like I can just start searching for stuff and find new deals, and quickly just kind of ran with it. Obviously there's an opportunity to make money, but all visually seeing your work in the sense of, I got this pair of shoes for 100, I'm going to flip them for 150. Like that's a fun little side hustle that you can do on weekends or weeknights. So definitely became a sneakerhead though. I think at one point I had 60 or 70 pairs that I was just kind of holding for myself. I got rid of all of them. That was about 3 or 4 months ago, I started selling off a lot of them. And it was funny because I sold like 20 pairs to me, but like 7, 8, 9 years ago. It was like looking into a mirror and like racking up all these shoes, trying to flip them. I was like, I understand where you're coming from. So
did you give him any kind of break, like in terms of pricing? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I basically cut it half because I was like, half those shoes didn't even fit me anymore. Yeah. They were in the closet that I didn't even remember I had anymore. And once I went through, I was like, there's going to be some sneakerhead out there that's just dying to land on one of those deals that I always talk about. So I gave him a good break. Hopefully them well. Definitely turned into a sneakerhead, and now it feels weird to have like 5 or 6 pairs back in the closet where I used to have 10 times the amount, if not more.
It was nice to pass the torch on to the up and coming generation of hustlers. It's interesting because I'm kind of a little bit of a sneakerhead here and there, not super, not with the amount of pairs, but I had 3 pair of sneakers that I couldn't afford when I was a kid that I got in the last couple of years. And it's just, they're more trophies than anything. Like I don't really even wear them. Honestly, I can't even imagine stepping into like a few $100 pair of sneakers and just like walking on the ground with them.
I remember my friend had he got the Yeezys right whenever they came out, if you're familiar. I think they were one of the newer ones. They were still really expensive, and he was wearing them around school and showing them off. And I was like, no, those would be in a case in my room. I wouldn't dare trust anyone around me to wear those out.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's and once I realized I'm not super materialistic, but it was like one of those things where I worked hard and I wanted to be able to kind of like fulfill that place in my life where like when I was younger and I kind of went without those things that I wanted, and it was interesting to be able to do that. And when I had them, and I'll be honest, because a lot of them are retro, like they're uncomfortable as heck. Like I can't even, like I know there's like some of them make my feet fall asleep. I'm like, why would I even wear these anyway? So it's interesting. Once you finally get it, you're like, yeah. And like you said, you had 60 pair in the closet and like half of them you never even saw. So it's crazy. So yeah, so when I was younger, I did something similar. I was more into comic books, baseball cards. That was what was hot at the time. And so I did a lot of like buying, flipping, trading, all of that stuff with the cards, using them as just like a little way to learn about business. And used to shovel snow for money in Boston. And, sometimes we'd get gypped by like a cute little old lady and she'd give me coffee instead of money or like hot chocolate. And then the one thing that was similar to you, where you were taking golf balls and like repurposing them. I grew up in Boston across the street from Logan Airport, and we would go to, probably 3 or 4 or 5 of us, depending on who was with us. And we would go to Logan Airport and we would run around the terminals. There's these little things called smart carts, which are like these, luggage carriers, like which were probably more needed back in the day when luggage wasn't as sophisticated, but you can carry like 5, 6 things of luggage. And like you put them on this smart cart, and when you return them to the stall they go in, like a quarter pops back out. And so we would run through and take these carts through the terminals, like terminal A through E in Logan Airport, and like put these carts back. And every time you get a quarter back. And so by the end of the day, we had like $5 or $10. We were like super excited, each of us. And the cool thing about it was there was a little thrill to it. We would get chased by security through the airport once they caught on to us. So like there was like this like really fun, cool, like, and then just all that stuff led to where I'm at today. So it sounds similar to where you've kind of had these fun, interesting ways to learn about entrepreneurship, to learn how to make money on your own and not have to trade time for money. Essentially, you trade time for money, but you're doing it on your own schedule, and you're building your own dream. And so that led you into more like social media and dealing with social media. And tell us a little about that step and what that's been like for you.
Yeah. And I think taking that next step, especially from shoes to social, is more the, hustler to like, can I build a business out of this? And it's when I started to really get serious about like at least realizing that there was a big possibility there. And honestly, it was one of those things that whether inherently or not, I sat down and was like, what am I going to be better at than most people right now? Like without even having a true skill set. It was social because I grew up with this thing. I grew up with Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and I knew it like the back of my hand. So obviously, if I was going to do something in that moment, figure out the next hustle, it was, the one thing that I spent hours on a day. I knew like the back of my hand, it was going to be easy to repurpose and go in, build out some type of schedule or strategy for a brand and go with it. But I think more importantly was, I see the mindset as everything behind you. It was the mindset of the fact that like, I think my first client was when I was 19. As a 19-year-old, I can actually bring value to a company that does millions of dollars a year. And I think that was the biggest mindset shift. That first client didn't make me rich. And I think it was like $6,000 a year that I was doing their social for. On top of the fact I was in college, I was playing college soccer. I had no time, but I still did it. It was just the fact that, that mindset quickly shifts whenever you realize that, the only way like your life does not have to consist of only having one form of income or two, just one type of income in the place where, you're basically trading all of your hours in a day for a set return.
Yep.
Whether you work 40 hours a week or 80 hours a week. It was interesting the fact that like, if I worked harder and put in more hours for this, there's a really good chance that, whether there was a commission schedule or commission pay, I was going to get more out of it too. I think it was just the biggest mindset understanding of the fact that like, there's a lot of value to be had. It's more or less just going out and asking for it. And I think that was from that point on, it's just realizing the opportunities that are there to be had. You just have to go out and actually grab them.
There's a lot of insight there. And it's amazing that you're walking that path at such a young age, because the average millionaire, from things that I've read and seen, has about 3 to 5 predictable revenue streams like that aren't trading time for money. They've set these businesses up. They've set these revenue streams up. And basically they have these things working for them in the background while they're doing their main hustle or their main business. And so, I think Warren Buffett was saying, if you only have one job, you're going to end up working until you die. So instead of, pivoting and like what you did, where you started learning that multiple revenue streams, from the golf ball hustle to the sneaker hustle to the social media. And then, as a college kid and you're making $6,000 a year off one client, you probably started getting a lot of confidence, and you started getting a lot of, you peeled back the curtain, so to speak, to see like a whole nother world, and that you could actually make money on your own. You could go out and create your own life. And so what's that transition been like from when you first made that first, $6,000 as a college kid? How have you progressed, and like, what does your business look like today?
Yeah. I think that very first stage, admittedly hated it and was close to just turning in the whole time, because I was the one making $6,000 a year, but I was also the one doing all the work for $6,000 a year.
Yep.
And, I think whenever I started, there was this bad trend around outsourcing. And I, for some reason, picked it up in the fact that like, it's not a true business unless you're working 60 hours a week and you're hustling and, you're making the difference. And to an extent, it's true. Like you have to put in the time, but where the business is today is crazy. I did a little project management last night and this morning, checking on different schedules and different projects, different sites and stuff like that. And quickly checked the number of people that are in just our Slack channel and Trello board where we manage all the products. I think it's up to like 30 now, which is crazy because, 2-3 years ago, it would have just been one. I would have been the copywriter, the designer, the developer, the whole suite. But you quickly realize that like, and this is where I think America in general gets it wrong if I don't go too off path, but it's not doubling down, or you should be doubling down on your strengths, and you should be basically ignoring your weaknesses. And my theory on this is the fact that your weaknesses are someone else's strengths. So not only is it better for you to hand off your weaknesses as someone else who enjoys doing that, it's going to be better for quote unquote the world, because, everyone is doing what they're good at. And I don't see a place or a time in which everyone's doing what they're good at. They're getting paid for what they're good at, and somehow it doesn't all work out in the end. So I quickly realized the things that got me really excited were closing deals and onboarding clients, because I got to have the fun of closing a deal and hearing yes, and then sending the initial invoice off, and then basically putting the back end in order. So from the project management to the design to the development to the copywriting, all of that has, a name tag to it. They get paid per project, and that's how we roll with it. And they're happy because I'm a big believer in the gig economy. I honestly probably won't ever have a full-time employee until it's a non-negotiable and we have to. Yeah. I'm perfectly fine with the 1099 contractor thing because, my copywriter, well, we probably give him 2 or 3 jobs a month. He has 15 other clients on the side that he works with on a full-time basis for their copywriting needs. And it would be selfish of me to try and steal him away, pay him less just so I had his focused attention when him working with those other clients makes him a lot smarter, which means his quality on my projects are a lot better too. So I think you look at the grand scheme of things, the biggest mindset shift from kind of that first client to where we're at today is the fact that, really to go, and I was thinking about this yesterday, go to like 0 to 6-figure business, which isn't truthfully all that crazy. And maybe that's the first thing I realized when you peek behind the curtain. A lot of that is just work. Yeah. And it's putting your head down and getting to the point to where you have momentum. But then it's like, okay, hey, the ball's rolling. It's going to be a lot easier to get more people behind this ball and start pushing it with me. And that's where 6 to 7, a lot of that is, do you have the people and do you have the systems? And that's truthfully what we're working on now. We're pushing closer to that 7-figure run rate. But like I said, I'm not 20. I'm 22, going on 23. I don't expect to be a millionaire at 24. I think it'd be awesome. But I think those lessons now of learning what the difference between a 6 to 7-figure business is, those aren't conversations that truthfully my other 23-year-old friends are having. So in a lot of ways I feel left out, but in the other way, I'm going to look back on it. I think like we talked about earlier, what is that going to mean to me when I'm 25, 30, 35, 40? And you kind of have that early onset of seeing entrepreneurship for what it is.
Yeah, man, you touched on a couple points there that I want to talk on, from the Gary V ideology to sales to being an early investor, because I think you're kind of giving yourself less credit than you deserve. I'll tease all this stuff out. So for the Gary V thing, in my mind, you talk about how, for what you said in terms of like basically double down your strengths and punt your weaknesses. And that's something that I've heard him preach through the years. And, for the most part, that's extremely correct, especially in business, right? Like if you're a master at something and you're amazing at something, like stay in that lane. And if you know that you're not amazing at something, when it comes to time and money that you have to perform, it's a lot better and makes a lot more sense to hire and sub that stuff out. Because the time it takes for you that you could be focusing on the thing that you're amazing at to learn something where you might be decent at it, you have these experts out there that are already humming and ready to go. You could just already pivot to them. And like you said, what was really smart that I liked what you said was you have this person that already has 15 other people he's working with, and he gets so much information and world experience that then he could come and add more value to you because he has that experience. So I think that's beautiful. And I think, for me personally, in my personal life, not with business, there's things that I want to work on that I suck at, like singing. I want to get better at singing, and I want to get better at photography, and I want to get better at, all these different things. But like when it comes to business, time is money, and you have to focus on what you're good at. And so I love that. And then the other piece you mentioned was sales. And so you said you love closing the deal and that you love like kind of the thrill of that yes. Where did you get your sales acumen? Because most people don't have that ability. You might have a natural gift with people. You might have a natural conversational style, but there's an art to closing, and there's an art to a sale. There's an art to follow up. There's an art to prospecting. Like there's a lot of skills that you don't just have. You have to develop them. So where did that come from for you to where you got to a point that you loved that piece of the business and you found out that was a strength?
Yeah. And I think I was bad at it at first. The people that I ended up closing were the people that I probably pitched 60 to 70% of what other people were pitching. And I closed on the sheer will of I was the cheapest option, and they were happy with potentially getting something close to what they wanted.
Yeah.
But I think as it's gone on, right, it's understanding a couple things. And I think one of the biggest things is that typically a yes or no is never about price. It's always about the way that you articulate the value that you're bringing to the table.
100%.
If I go in and pitch a $10,000 website to a $100,000 website, I would argue I probably have a better chance of landing the $100,000 website because I'm going to go into that pitch the most prepared I've ever been in my life. I'm going to know every objection. I'm going to know how to handle every single objection. And I'm going to go in there and state the value. But the other thing is, I can book a meeting with somebody that knows I'm about to pitch them 100K, I must have done something right in step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 to lead up to that final meeting. But I think that's where, we get really interested in like, how do people price, especially agencies, which is a whole nother, we could write a book on this and do 6 hours on agency pricing and why it's just a black box of information. But something I realized early on is the fact that as a 20-year-old, if I'm going to win deals, I have to be radically different just to get myself through the door and catch the attention of people that are going to make decisions. And what I started doing is the fact that, other agencies, I would go in there and I'd be like the third or fourth to pitch for a website. I'd be like, look, be honest, what are other agencies pitching you? I'd hear the 15 to 20 to 25K for a website. And I'm like, look, to be honest, and to be very honest, like this website probably requires $11,000 of work. Here is exactly how I would break that down on the back end. And, I'd send over a spreadsheet or like a Google Doc table and be like, 30% goes here, 20% goes here, 50% goes here. And then I'd even add in like, this is 45% is our profit margin. And I'm including that to be transparently honest. Like, I think quickly what I realized is the fact that there is no honesty in sales, whether it comes to an agency. And I don't know if you see it in your side of the world as well, but people will go in there and they'll just attach a number. But they're, if they're going to go pitch a Fortune 100 company, they're going to look, see their financials, guess what their budget is. Okay, typically this was $1,000. We're going to make it 10,000 because I know they have the money to spend. And I think that's where, one, you lead with sales with honesty and you just pitch up front. But, the quicker that you can be blunt with your prospect, the more likely they're going to be blunt with you and you actually have a real conversation. But two, I think the quickest thing I realized and the most important is that it's never about price. 1% of the time it's about price. Someone literally may not be able to afford it because they have a strict budget. There are ways to handle that. But 9 times out of 10, it's the fact that you prospected correctly, you qualified correctly, you really warmed them up as a lead. That phone call should be probably the easiest part of your day. And it should be, you've done the right steps in order. It's a close and it's a quick 20-minute call and things should be good. So I think understanding as well, I'm definitely a systems person. So I like having the structure. And I think that earlier that I learned the structure, this is how I was going to handle every single sales cadence from first touch point in the buyer's journey to sending an invoice. The less I had to think about the system, the more I could think about the prospect, which was helpful as well.
That's beautiful. So I want to touch on a couple pieces there. So with you being transparent and honest and likable, like that's what people want when they do business with someone. They want someone that they like, that they know, and they trust. And if you come out the gates and you're straightforward with your pricing and you tell them all details, like there's a confidence in that, and people are attracted to that. People are attracted to that, and there's a beautiful honesty in there too. It's like, this is what it is. This is the cost of doing business with me, and it really kind of eliminates any questioning on their side. Like, and there's some doubt that is erased, and it's like, okay, well, there's the confidence piece of it. So like, let's talk business. And then the other piece of that was, you definitely speak in depth about the sales process from like introduction, qualifying, sending an invoice, following up, and there's a system. Where did you get that information? Is this just trial and error where you figured it out, or did you have mixed in with just experience? Did you have some thought leaders, some books, some people that you turn to for some sales ability that you sprinkled in with your natural game?
Yeah, there's basically 2 people I go to. One is Jordan Ross. He's more or less like a coach of mine now. We, chat weekly about business, life, kind of take the holistic approach to actually figuring this out, which has been helpful. And the other, his name's Ned Eric, and he's, both of them are who I would consider very good at sales. And it's nice to have, I guess there's a couple of things in that. One, just a few people to go to, but I think the quickest way that you can get set back as an entrepreneur, business person, honestly, even if you're in a 9 to 5, the quickest way you're going to get set back is jumping from thought leader to thought leader, book to book. And the goal isn't always to take in more information. It's to figure out what information you resonate with and then dive really deep on that. So, I started out 19, 20. I read probably 30, 40 books a year. I was no smarter because I couldn't tell you half the books I read. But of those 30 or 40, there were like 4 principles that I pulled from, and all of them were across like 2 books. Well, then I figured out who those authors were and then just followed them on Instagram, started watching their YouTube channel, dove deep into what they offered. And it's a lot easier because at the end of the day, if you're at starting point A, there's a lot of ways to get to the end point of Z. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. You don't have to do all 100 to get the Z. You just got to pick one and do it. So I think that was the other thing. Having Ned, having Jordan close by, makes it easier on me because they have a sales system. I'm going to follow it. I may tweak it from time to time to more aptly fit what we're offering, but I don't have to worry about going and reading a book because I have this process that two guys have proven works. I don't need anything more.
Yeah, you that's beautiful. Is information overload, analysis paralysis. It's like find the couple things that you resonate with, and honestly, for quality of life too. I mean, if you want to build something the way that you want to build it, and you want to have life the way you want to have it, like if you can just focus on those things, it'll lead you there versus always chasing the next shiny object, the next marketing idea, the next sales idea, the next funnel, a lot of entrepreneurs get trapped and they get stuck in this never-ending cycle of attending conferences and reading books and going to all these things. And it's like, there's an importance for that because you meet some beautiful people, they could become friends, they could become clients, you may be able to impact some stuff, but at the end of the day, for the most part, you kind of have all the information you already need to make a good assertion of like how to move forward. And then you kind of fine tune it as you go along. So I love that. And the third piece that you mentioned a little while back was, and this is where I felt like you were kind of being humble. You said, well, I'm this age right now, and I don't think I'll be a millionaire in the next couple of years. But I kind of disagree with that because you and I have had a conversation, prior to jumping on about your investing habits and your mindset of, you're a 22-year-old guy, you have the whole world in front of you. You're still very young in terms of entrepreneurship and life. But you've really leaped ahead most people total, like regardless of any age, in terms of your thought process of saving and investing and looking towards the future. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think that's super important for entrepreneurs. Number one, making that leap from a 9 to 5 or, a steady income. And then all of a sudden they're going out on their own. They have to have really good habits in place and they have to be able to generate predictable revenue. But more importantly than that, they have to plan for the future. And most entrepreneurs don't have the time to do that. And that's why I exist. So I'm an investment manager. And the reason why I exist is because most financial or most entrepreneurs and business owners, they don't give themselves the space to think about the future because they're so focused on the now. They're so focused on building and growing and training and helping and selling and everything they're doing that they lose track. And then eventually, 20, 30 years down the road, they may not have anything to show for it because they've been so myopic. So talk about how you operate a little bit differently.
Yeah, there was, so admittedly, we had this podcast a year ago, let's say, I was 100% focused in the now. I'm going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. And I won't have to worry about any investing because I'll just be super rich and I'll be, well off, right? That was the mindset that I was like, if I'm going to be an entrepreneur, that's what I got to do. That's where people go wrong because they put their money in investments. They don't reinvest into the business. And then, I read a book by Scott Galloway and it was The Algebra of Happiness. And it's less of a book, more of like, if I was to sit down with Scott for, 30 different dinners over the course of a year, it would be like combining all of those random conversations. Some are about health, some are about, texting your grandparents, some are about investing. And the investing part I got to because he was like, you're not the next Steve Jobs. You're not the next Mark Zuckerberg. You're not the next. He was like, you're not probably going to found a Fortune 500 company. He was like, you don't need to be wealthy. He was like, Fortune 501, so to speak, is more than okay. Like, I'm sure he's enjoying driving his Ferraris around and living the life. But he was like, what those guys do differently is that, early on, while they love their business and they want it to succeed 99% of the time, there's always something in the back of their head that's like, if this goes to zero, what is the next play?
That's right.
And I think that's where slowly stacking up your little war chest, as a good mentor of mine calls it, having that ready for ground zero. If something crazy breaks down, you have your little war chest here that you can rely on. And that's something that, obviously wanted to have built early up, especially, if I decide to go a couple years, reinvest everything into a business. If it goes to zero, while it may not be a lot, there's going to be some money there set aside that will make sure that I can at least, sit down, take a deep breath, sit for a year, and then restart over. So I think that's one thing. But the other part of it is as well, you talk about passive income. There's nothing more passive than dividend investing stocks. I don't have to show up for meetings. I don't have to respond to emails. I don't have to talk to anybody. I don't even know where half the offices are of the companies that I've invested in for their dividends. But it's beautiful because, it grows on its own. But it's something that if you're going to put your money into something, your hard-earned money into something, it should be one, making you money. But two, I think the other thing people miss is like, we all use Apple products. If I'm going to use this day to day, I better have their stock. And
That's
it's
right.
that Yeah, I got the AirPods here too. Like I could go on and on. So I think it's something that basically the first thing I did is I did an audit of everything that was in my room. And I was like, okay, what do I have the most of? And a lot of it is like Apple and Amazon for Kindles and, the different products, and everything behind me is probably from Prime. So that was the first place I put my money. And then slowly, I think if you can peak, there's Intelligent. And I love that book because it's like 300, 400 pages. And basically the premise of the book is that you probably won't be able to beat the market. And the amount of time that you have to put into beating the market probably isn't worth the extra 1% gain. So there's a little chapter in there that talks about like how to build your own portfolio, and basically sat down for one weekend, read that chapter like 2 times over, had my nice little Excel table going, and then just figured it out, made sure I was comfortable with it. And that's just what I've rolled with ever since.
Yep. Tried and true. And investing is a lifelong game. So for those, you're speaking to my heart, man, for those that are trying to beat the market, less than 4% of the best money managers in the world, the people that do this, eat, sleep, breathe, like train, less than 4% of them can beat the market. That's really profound. That doesn't include just the layperson, someone who's trying to figure this out on their own, someone who has all the time, the tools, the resources, the focus to be able to say, I'm going to game the system and get that 1% to 2%. And then it's definitely not easy to do. So for you to have that long-term approach, dividend reinvestment, let these stocks kind of appreciate over time, which they always do. The stock market's always gone up over time. It has its corrections every 10 years on average, and then it corrects and it goes up again. It's very smart to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think on that, I gotta jump in. My favorite quote ever, I think it's from Tony Robbins. He was like, the stock market crashing never lost anyone any money. It was the fear of the stock market crashing that lost people money. And I remember hearing that for the first time, not even a couple months ago. It was like, that is probably my new favorite statement, because, if the Dow goes down and it drops 30% 30 or 40% like it did earlier this year, and everyone freaked out. People, if they didn't sell, they didn't lose any money. Their money was still in there. And honestly, they've probably seen some pretty solid returns if they've held it to this point, because I think investing is also like a habit building game in the form of discipline and like how to control your fear.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, seeing that number tick up and down, if you watch it hourly, you will go insane. But I'm to the point now, I'm about to delete all of it off my phone, because I was like, I'd much rather check here and be like, oh, that's a bigger number than it was a year ago. That's really cool.
I know. And it's interesting because that's what it is. People, and it's interesting. I'm writing a book right now. It's called Happy Wealth. So it's kind of similar to, I think, what you alluded to with the other gentleman's book, but it's basically my story, my journey, my experience. But then there's 10 actionable steps. If you do these 10 things, you will become wealthy and you'll be happy doing it. And that's the most important thing people lose sight of is, why be rich or wealthy? There's a difference. Rich is having a lot of money. Wealthy is having unlimited amount of time and freedom. So why be rich or wealthy if you're not happy? And if you're not content? And the big thing is it's all about emotional behavioral investing. And so that's what I really hit on. So the mindset piece is huge, thinking about things differently. And then if you're an emotional person, you shouldn't be checking the market every day. You shouldn't be logging on to TD Ameritrade or wherever you're at and looking, because it's going to freak you out. And I love that you brought up Tony Robbins, because he basically tells people to work with me in terms of a fiduciary, which is someone who perfectly aligns with a client and doesn't, sell products or services. We absolutely look through the same window. And he talks about the same thing. He's like, what he did was there's a book, Money Master the Game. And he went out and he interviewed 50 of the world's top financial planners, investment advisors. And he got insight from each one of these people on portfolio management, or how to protect against risk. Wow, that took a second to get up. And then as far as implementing these things into your life, but basically not thinking about them and either letting somebody else manage them for you, or don't react when the market corrects, because that's what it's supposed to do. So if you know about the system, and if you know about how to basically not shoot yourself in the foot, you will make money if you stay in the game long enough. And so I love that you already know that at such a young age. And so what does that process look like for you? Are you to walk us through a little bit, you don't have to get into super detail, but just kind of like your mindset about how you invest into the market and like what that looks like for you.
Yeah, I almost, for the sake of like budgeting every week, every month, so to speak, I treat that investment as an expense that always happens. Like rent is always due first of the month. My investment rent is always due. I tend to go weekly or biweekly. But it's something that's non-negotiable. And basically it's the concept that I learned from Rich Dad Poor Dad that, pay yourself first. I'm going to pour all this money in, make sure I have met the asset side of things. And if I'm short on the liability side in terms of rent or something else, I'll find a way to make money. And if not, then I will learn from my lesson and I will try and make more money in the future. But that's something to where that is like non-negotiable. If I'm short and I can't go out to eat, then I can't go out to eat. But I think place that people switch that is that, hey, I'm going to go take care of myself first and the rest is going to go. Well, if you keep taking care of yourself first, you will never have the rest to go put into that investment account. And that's something to where, truthfully, I'd like to say I've been picture perfect with it. There are some weeks to where I don't, and I'm going to wait another week because I got to take care of something. And I can treat it as a mistake. However, I'd rather be right 80 to 90% of the time than be perfect and then burn out in a year. But it's just another thing to where the more habitual you can get it, the more automated you can get it as well in terms of like, just I use something called Zapier for the business that the term is zap. Like if I can just zap, X amount from my income every single week or every single month, and then it just automatically moves to my investment account where I don't have to log on and do anything.
Yes.
That's the only way to really do it, because if you're manually going in there, clicking it over and looking at those numbers every time you do it, you're eventually going to be like, do I need to put that much? And the answer is yes, you should probably put more. But that's just one of the things that, like I said, if you look at my bank account and I'm sitting here preaching principles, it may be a little different, but it's some of those building blocks as well that you have to start early, in my opinion, coming from someone who was, a financial econ major in college that understands markets and financial wealth and health, understanding the bigger picture there. Like this stuff grows over time. And if you do it right, it's going to look really dumb early on, but then give it time and let it grow and let it actually build itself. It looks like the best decision you've ever made. So that's just something that, to me, there's a few things that are non-negotiable. And one of them is the fact that I will at least pour some amount of money, if not the same amount of money, into my investment account, as a sum every single month before I start doing other stuff.
The power of the habit and that almost set it and forget it to a degree. You want to be mindful of what you're doing, but that automation and being able to pull out a certain amount of money and what you're doing. And I don't know if you've heard this term, but you're kind of alluding to what's called dollar cost averaging. And if you can take a set amount of money on a predictable schedule every 2 weeks, once a month, and you just put that money in like clockwork, what's happening is instead of trying to time the market or trying to get things on discount, you're just doing that by default. So as the market goes up and down like it does every day, there'll be days where you're buying stuff on discount cheaper than what it's going to be. And then over the course of time, these things appreciate. And so you're basically buying more shares and more equity and more ownership in the company through the year versus if you were just to do one lump sum through the year to try to get into the market. So I love that mentality. And I preach that in my business. And it's all these things that you're doing, man. If most of the people in the world could do this, like the world would look a little bit different, a lot different, really, honestly. But I love what you're doing. So in terms of kind of where the business is today and what you're focusing on, the types of deals and clients you're working on, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's really two specific types of people I go after. The first niche, which I think will prove to be a bit more successful in the long run. But there's a reason that we have two, and I'll explain in a second. The first one is like B2B SaaS. So if you think of one of our most recent clients is an app on your phone. So what you do, let's say I want to sell this coffee cup through Facebook Marketplace, but I don't want to leave my house, coronavirus, X, Y, and Z. I just don't want to go. It's not safe. So what you do is use this app. And basically it's a third-party marketplace in the middle that they hold your money in escrow. So they take this, they go deliver to the client, the other party. They agree and they want it, then they release the funds. So someone is that middleman. So we're building out a website for them now, but their pain points are similar to the pain points that most people will face in the market in the sense of B2B SaaS, 0 to 3, maybe 4 years old. If you've lasted 3 to 4 years old, you've probably done a couple things. The first thing that you've done is you've invested wildly into your own product to make sure that it's usable, it looks good, and you're probably going crazy on press as well, trying to get some backlinks in the Forbes. And we deal a lot in Indianapolis, so they have IBJ, which is Indianapolis Business Journal, trying to get some press there, trying to get on the news, meet with governors or state officials, and really get your thing out there into the public. But that means at the same time, if you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. That's typically the content marketing, the social media, and the website. So we come in the future, I'd love to be your fractional marketing team, more or less, and take care of all of that. Right now, I am most comfortable probably just doing the content marketing, which are blogs, podcasts, really just that strategy, and then also the website implementation. But looking at those websites, there's always a certain feel. But I think this is where people get websites wrong, is that they try to solve 13 different pain points all in one website.
Yeah.
They're going on there and they're trying to do, download my app, join my email newsletter, contact me, join our team and work with us. They try and do all of this, and it's a lot easier. Like for the website that we're doing now, download our app, request press. That's it. I'm honestly not even sure if there's a true contact form, because at the end of the day, there doesn't need to be. Most people will just call you, email you, or interact with the chat bot on the website. So I think that's niche one where we're serving. Niche two is kind of people in your shoes, to be truthful, going after people that are more self-made, but also just kind of solo doing it. But they're more B2C, working with clients specifically. So whether that be a coach or a consultant that's just kind of on their own doing it, typically work with them, because the biggest differentiator, one, is typically their personal brand. But if they have that, their personal brand will drive traffic somewhere. Business deals are not closed over LinkedIn DMs. They're typically closed over email. And the easiest way to get someone to email is to have a website in your digital home to get them interested into what you're doing. So that's kind of niche too. And the reason we're still working there is because I love working one-on-one with people, because I don't have to interfere with company brand or company mission or company, like it's just them. And they know what they're doing better than anyone, because it's what they've always done. So that's been a lot of fun as well, is to bring out that person's unique story in a way that makes them more valuable to the person reading the other side of the screen, in the sense that, Jesse, you aren't the shining star. It's just the work that you provide to your clients, because they knew what they needed to do all along. You just helped them get there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that hero's journey mentality of like showcasing them in the right light. So those are the two places we're working on now. Continuing to learn how to outsource and delegate. I think the biggest goal, and I will freak out the day it happens, is one of our sales guys comes to me and like, hey, I closed a deal and I didn't know anything about it. That'll be the ultimate goal, of the fact that, if I can have other people closing deals alongside of me that I'm not even aware of, that I wasn't a touch point on, I think that's the quickest way that I will understand that, one, this is scalable, but two, we're already at a spot that, we are scaling as we speak. So
you can start looking to the future and potentially removing yourself from the day-to-day business if you have people around you that are bringing in revenue, because sales equal revenue, and every business at some level needs sales. And so
sales will solve all your problems.
That's it. That's true.
Mark even said that sales will solve every single one of your business operations. More sales, honestly, for any startup, even if you're under 10 years, you should just be selling your head off every single week.
I couldn't agree more. I come from an outside sales. My very first sales experience was in 2006, and I was doing outside sales, door-to-door commission, pretty much the hardest sale that you can do. And it's absolutely lended to my success to this day, like in terms of people skills and overturning objections and really listening and being empathetic and like all these like real life skills. I really feel that everybody at some level should do sales for at least a year in their life, because it's going to help them be a better human, honestly. But I like what you said about LinkedIn really quick. So LinkedIn is not going to help you. It's not going to be the place you close the deal. But for me, LinkedIn is the place where that starts. And so for me, I do a really good job on LinkedIn by providing value up front and adding value up front, and then connecting with people. And when I connect with you on LinkedIn, it's, hey, David, great to meet you. My name's Jesse. This is what I do. I'd love to connect with you and hear more about you and your journey and your mission and how I can add value to you. And then from there, this connection starts. And that's actually what would lead to the sale. So I do love the idea of connecting with people on LinkedIn, but knowing that the sale is going to happen somewhere else down the line. And whether that's in person, email, or over the course of time. And it's super important for people to understand that it's not going to happen generally on the first conversation. And it's going to take, they say anywhere from 8 to 12 touch points before you can get that sale. And whether that's an email here or a text here or a follow-up here, it doesn't happen right away. So people have to stay persistent if that's the type of person you want in your business. So I love that idea of just kind of staying on task and closing the deal further down the line. Last thing I wanted to kind of touch base on is it's super important as an entrepreneur and a business owner and someone who's kind of doing their own thing to stay healthy and to stay mindful of self-care and kind of taking care of themselves. Are there any things that you're doing in terms of health and wellness, fitness, taking care of yourself, your mental well-being that really helps you perform better as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's like the way I talked about investing. One of the things that I have to do every day is at minimum a 30-minute workout, whether it's a run or like a quick hit workout. Got to get my body moving, but I also am trying to work in now 30 minutes of stretching, because I played college soccer and my body's starting to feel the results of playing college soccer for years. I think those two things, you got to take care of your body, but also wear this little Whoop band, and it's a heart rate tracker. You got one as well. I love it. They are a life hack. I will put it like
sure.
that. They make a huge difference. And it's one of the things to where transparently their pricing is a little odd because you pay monthly. The band's free. You pay monthly for the data and the software. It's like $360 a year, $30 a month or something like that.
It's so worth it. It's so
worth it. I paid it a year ago. I have not even thought second about it. I'd probably pay double because I sleep better. I'm a healthier person all around. I could not recommend that enough, but get something along the lines that's going to help you start finding those data points in the way you treat your body, because that's the most important.
Yeah, the most important doctor that you'll find before you have to go seek one out is rest and recovery. There's this guy I follow. His name is Paul Chek. You might want to check him out. Paul Chek is he's one of the first biohackers. He's one of the first people that understands how to optimize his body, optimize his way in life, from spirituality, from mindset to strength, from relationships. And there's the 4 doctors, and one of the doctors, and these are the doctors that you can control. But if you neglect them, you're going to have to go see another doctor. And these doctors, the main one is Dr. Rest or Dr. Sleep. And so the Whoop strap, the Whoop band, is imperative for understanding rest and recovery. It captures so much data. And I love the fact that it's $30 a month, because $1 a day and someone who's into health and wellness and performance, like, it's nothing. The investment that you're getting back, the return on investment that you're getting, the life that you're living, I'd gladly pay double or triple, like you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell them that, but
yeah,
but I would. And so as far as looking forward to 2021, in terms of business or your life, what you got going on? What's kind of the goal for you in the next few months to a year?
Yeah, the biggest thing right now, October 2021, I want to push us to a 7-figure run rate, so it gets it around that $84K a month revenue. And truthfully, while I want to be adherent to margin, because that's a big thing, especially in the agency world, I think pushing it to 7 figures is going to mean I learned a lot of what I set out to do, which is how to run a business and how to build the systems to make the business run without you. So simple and easy. That's my one big goal, is to push that 7-figure run rate within a year.
Beautiful, brother. You have tons of insight, tons of knowledge. We'll make sure we have plenty of ways for people to connect with you in the show notes and in different social media links. But thank you so much. He's the mighty, the powerful, the amazing David Riggs. I'm Jesse T. Be sure to catch us on next week's episode of The Jesse T Show.